Sup goats, it's JOAT, and welcome to JOAT Plus September 2021. For those who don't know what this compilation series is, I essentially quickly round up projects that have dropped throughout the last month, as well as hitting y'all with some honorable mentions, as well as non-dubstep / EDM recommends. Got 11 projects to feature this time around. And yeah, I missed out on a lot last month. I feel like a lot of hyped releases, so I'll be covering most of them here. Let's get into it. Alright, y'all. This EP, typical approach to dubstep, I feel like. Not overly special synths backed by some sustains and reverb to fill out the mix, but the sounds are more elastic than what you get on your average middle-of-the-road, chunky, clunky, disciple rhythm approach, that kind of sound. The non-drop sections are uniquely pretty and hazy as well. They do stand out. My favorite off of this EP has to be Underground. I love the hybrid trap approach. It reminds me of like Nazar, I want to say. Solid flow too. And no least favorite off of here. The rest of the tunes were equally decent in my opinion. So overall, Dr. Ushuu Space EP. Alright EP, I did like it more than I expected. I was preparing myself for a mid-roundtable release, respectfully, but it is not bad. I somewhat got into this thing, and the parts I couldn't get into were just too typical, bland for me. Yeah. Kind of a return to form for Eliminate. I honestly felt like he was falling off after the Dead Sea EP. Tunes like Multiplex being so mediocre and uninspired. It's definitely unique and still his style, but just rinse and repeat and brought nothing new to the table and just took away all the energy out of his sound to that vibrant Eliminate sound. So despite me feeling like he did a little too much on this EP specifically, I did enjoy the variety and approach and sound. And yeah, this EP is not bad whatsoever. The quirkiness, energy, and eccentricity is all here pretty prominently. My favorites have to be Elevator and Walk Away, the former consisting of these rippity-dippity flows and faster grooves. That one's pretty tight, and the latter being melodic. Eliminate. And it's not generic either. It's his staple sound, that drop-like sound, that droplet sound, with a melodic touch to it. The execution of the sound design is perfect in my opinion. No least favorite either off of this EP. So yeah, I came away with this EP with 2 new favorites out of Eliminate's entire discography, and the other songs not being bad. I partially got into the rest of them. Yeah, this EP isn't as good as the Cyber Whale and the Dead Sea EPs, respectively. Both of those EPs contain my favorite music of his. Keep in mind, I'm not an Eliminate fan. I privately listen to a couple songs of his, a handful. Specifically tunes like Stupid and Weeble Wobble. But yeah, I was satisfied with this EP and it was pretty alright overall. Hexagy coming through with a pretty unique blend of color bass, kind of mixing it with good old mellow dub and new rhythm, bit of future rhythm in there as well, just a little. Pretty weighty feel to these drops across the EP, propped by either gritty, drawn out bass lines or the sound design itself being pretty full and robust. The melodicity feels very color bassy for sure, sporadic, and the progression too, and the chords as well for some reason. And that's what makes this EP sound more color-based than anything, in my opinion. Not even the sound design really, but the melodic notation. Favorite off of this thing has to be Thriving, title track. Its gurgly first drop and meandering second drop. I feel this tune's melodicity the most, especially that like woodwind type synth that follows the sound design. It's so soft and just pretty. Oh, and the switch ups on this tune are insane as well. Bro's a mellow dub prodigy, to be honest. I haven't heard a project as eclectic as this in the melodic dubstep sphere in a long time. All of the dubstep subgenres that focus on melodicity are on this thing. And this EP is a brainchild of all of them. So yeah, pretty good EP. Only drawback for me is, again, the typical sounding chords during the more color bassy sections and some of the melodicity not being 100% for me. Then again, the background touches and groove of the music makes up for that most of the time. So yeah, I like this thing. This thing is interesting, though not in the best way. For one, I wasn't expecting this approach from both of them, but then again, I'm a relatively new Jkyl and Hyde fan. So their OG fan base may be used to them dropping shit like this, or them just dropping something different once in a while. So I don't enjoy the first track. It's way too simple and straightforward. The sounds are okay, and they do actually work together, the lead, the backing synth, and the thin sustain, but too little goes on for me to enjoy the song. Melodic motif is plain as well, just uninspired in my opinion. Second song does pick up the pace by a little bit, nice grit to the bubbly tonal idea, but it also is messy, also kind of uninspired. I like the shriller section in the second drop, but outside of that, didn't get too much out of this one either. Final tune, Angel's Cry, I do like. A thick, croaky bass line, like the sputtering melodic lead. It's glitchy, pretty, and unique and executed well too. That Jkyl and Hyde staple weight comes in toward the end of the song as well in the form of some chunky backing synths. So yeah, if I were to balance out all three of these tunes, overall this EP is not great. Only thoroughly enjoyed one song, pretty underwhelming. Ramps up in quality though, just starting out very mediocre and ending on a solid note. Final track unfortunately does not make up for how lackluster the first two tunes were, however. So as a whole, underwhelming EP in my opinion. Hope to see more just hard-hitting bangers from them drop in the near future. And they can be experimental, just this wasn't it. Moley. New showcase. I quickly became a fan of Moley's music after listening to songs like Abaddon, my bad, I keep on mispronouncing that word, Dragon Slayer, and Lazarus for his great blend of tear out and rhythm, savage and powerful deliveries and monstrous sustain basses, sharp insistent stabs too in the mix with most of his stuff. He's done more flat-out rhythm stuff in the time since. I love Blood of the Victor and Regenerate, same kind of vibe as his more tear-out leaning stuff, but more minimal and laid back. His Van Fleet collab was pretty solid too, so I was most definitely intrigued going into this thing. And it's actually pretty varied, genre-wise specifically. First ID kicks it off with some good old Moley rhythm tear-out, but from there we get a whole bunch of approaches to EDM drenched in that dark, evil Moley aura. Some rhythm, of course, deep dub, even house. And you can really hear the sudden death influence that Moley's music has. Not because of the sound design really, but the overall atmosphere. So yeah. Solid showcase. I really do need an EP from Dude at this point. I'd love to see him on Malignant, for example, if they ever plan to do solo EPs outside of Marauders. I feel like he'd perfectly fit the label. So yeah, hype for the future of Moley's music. He's sitting on hella IDs that I just love. And yeah, I hope he drops anything soon. Mr. Bill. First formal introduction to what Mr. Bill is all about. I knew he had this vintage IDM style, so I was definitely intrigued. But this LP, it's more than that. It's a blend of garage, neurofunk, ambient, D&B, trap, and a lot more EDM subgenres. This thing's great. My favorites go to the gorgeous intro track, Sad Pro, Slaptivism with Eli Derp, Titan with Eli Derp. There's 3 Eli Derp collabs, and y'all know I love Eli Derp, so that's great. And Screening Part 2 with Funny Funy. I also noticed that Mr. Bill likes the backdrops of his music to be spacey and minimal. That's a recurring thing on most of the solo music on here. But yeah, the bulk of these tunes are textured, pattering, light, and soft on the ears, and so well assembled. I'm really digging this thing. I really need to check out more Mr. Bill. His music definitely deserves all the hype it gets. I wasn't sure what to expect with this EP. Since Oddprophet dropped that unofficial EP back in 2019, The Devil, The Tower, The Hierophant, and The Star, which are 4 of his best tunes in my opinion. His music since overall hasn't been bad. There's been highlights, but a few duds as well. So this EP, I still don't know how to 100% feel about it. I think I like it. But the one thing I definitely know that I like about this EP is its aggression. The vocal features are crazy as fuck. The production on this thing too is very dynamic, as well as the mixing specifically. The percussion. I gotta say, I was missing his screechy, pristine sustains on this thing. He went in a deeper, grungier direction with every single one of these songs, more or less. You hear some flickers of his older style in there, but I could have used more of it because I do really enjoy that style, actually, when it gets put to good use. Favorite? I got to go with Absolute Power for that filtered out, crunchy bass line he uses as the main idea, surrounded by his staple sounds. In my opinion, it's a continuation of his sound while sticking to what he does best. My least favorite off of this thing has to be Speed Demon, mainly because there's too little Oddprophet. I mean, it may be him at some points, like putting forth a different style, but it doesn't really tie into the rest of the EP, I feel like. Also, when it comes to collab songs and one of the producers putting it onto their EP, I do feel like that producer needs to showcase their style a little more prominently, a bit more, and I wasn't getting that at all from this tune. And yeah, the song overall, if I'm looking at the collab names and what they brought forth, I'm not too big on it either. But yeah, I do admire how Oddprophet always reinvents himself. Some of his music is not for me, but his sound palette is very diverse, high energy, rhythm influence tear out. It's wild, it's off its rocker, and his stuff always packs a punch. So still kinda torn on this EP. It is something new and exciting, but do I thoroughly enjoy it? I'll have to give it a couple more listens. It's definitely not bad though. Pretty solid objectively, and yeah. Alright, so for the most part, I couldn't thoroughly get into this compilation. I feel like it's full of up-and-coming producers, judging by the mixing and production flaws all over it. I still have to go into this compilation with an objective state of mind. And sure, I wasn't expecting the production to be immensely clean and on a higher level type shit, because again, there are a lot of up-and-coming producers on this thing. My favorites would go to the Andre Leo, the Azaragai Invignator, the Chubba78, the Dubspeed, and the JPKY. And I'd also like to honorably mention the Cho's Name, the Fencer, the Half Up, the Hexix, the Hexorcist, the Pixel Growls, the Rio 619, the Psycho, the Shadow, the Sully and Dave Aliev, the Lavoy, the Volin, and the X-Wolf. Yeah, this thing is everywhere. 29 tunes, all kinds of EDM on here, and electronic music in general. But yeah, I feel like Outsize output will become better with time, and shout out to DJ Nam specifically for curating this comp and running the label. From the looks of things, his curation skills are not bad. Not as much filler on this compilation as I expected with damn near 30 tunes. I usually have a feeling that comps of this size are going to be bloated and have a lot of filler in them, with the exception of like Interval. But yeah, in this case, it's not filler, I'd say, rather just music I can't get into for, again, reasons of mixing and production predominantly. Ideas in some cases as well, although I will give it to this compilation for having some decent ideas on it. But yeah, speaking of ideas, outside of a couple moments that I really latched onto, nothing too stand out on here. Your typical new rhythm, melodic music, or whatever avenue the producers decided to go in. But yeah, I feel like Outsize and some of these producers on here are onto something. And it's only a matter of time before Outsize will drop a solid compilation, I feel like. So yeah, is there potential on this compilation? Yes. Overall, it is underwhelming, but understandably, because lots of new faces that are most likely new to producing. So shout out to this compilation, and I am really excited for the future of Outsize, for real. This Savage Selects compilation is rough. The dubstep on here, the approach to dubstep is what I was expecting from a Savage Society compilation, but the execution and memorability isn't great, unfortunately. My favorites have to be the Blank Space, the Tigers, and the Duffy. I can also honorably mention the Barracks, Blankface, Kerosene, Stallion, Veer, and Jkyl. But outside of that, I was expecting a lot from the Extant and Savage Maze specifically, but those unfortunately fall flat at a lot of points. In both cases, just sounds and ideas that don't work too well. But yeah, a lot of typical tear out influenced rhythm on this, some tonal rhythm, shit in between. But I will not be returning to over half of this compilation, unfortunately, due to just lack of interesting ideas on show. Pretty plain songs on here, I feel like. Yeah, it was disappointing. I enjoyed the last iteration much more. Not abysmal, but just songs that I really don't care for because they don't push the envelope far enough. Loads of forward-thinking EDM on this compilation. Sure, some ideas or production or rough around the edges, like they need a little more fine-tuning for me to properly get into it, but I do love the vibe, the futurism, the glossiness, the grittiness of this thing. A great blend of heavy and melodic too. It's textured as well. Favorites have to go to the Kuatari, the getting my French on part 3 or 4, Chalbert, and the three-way collab between Corey, Foe, and Fearazels. Least favorite, probably the Hazy Lake. The mixing and straightforwardness does take away from my overall enjoyment of the tune. But yeah, Silkenwood's on my radar after this compilation. Not a perfect comp by any means, but so much potential from newcomers, underdogs, and everything else in between. So shout out to Silkenwood. I will be checking more of their stuff out. Skyth, new EP. This is the purest, most innocent neuro I've actually ever heard, to be honest. Kinda got some Volgem vibes at points, especially with that intro tune. It's jazzy flair and various samples and instruments that were being used. Some mode mixture to round out the melodicity too, but I can't overlook it, especially since it wasn't the bass sounds that were like modal mixed. It was more the organic sounding instruments, which I don't mind it in that case, really. It fits with jazz. Favorite, Elapse. Also made the EP, although it was on Exobolt 008. Kind of interesting that they ended up putting it on here. Least favorite, Sentiment. I feel like it's missing that grungy, textured neuro flair that ties all the other tunes together. And I also feel like the melodic jump-up approach does run stale at points, kind of tedious. Not as meticulously assembled as the other 3 tracks are, running through different stages almost. Although I do like its carefree nature. So yeah, good EP from Skyth. Overall, it did live up to my expectations, and I feel like they do wear their influence on their sleeves, but they do put their own spin on neuro, especially melody-wise, that quirky, chirpy feel. It's so cutesy, and it's very enjoyable to listen to if put to good use, which, for the most part, it was on that EP, so shout out Skyth. Alright y'all, so that concludes the quick reviews of the projects I decided to cover. Let's get into my dubstep honorable mentions, which include my favorite tracks off of the projects I just went over. So we got Dr. Ushuu with Underground, we got Eliminate with Walk Away, Hexagy Thriving, Jkyl and Hyde, Angels Cry, Mr. Bill and Eli Derp with Slaptivism, Blank Space with Frorg, and Oddprophet with Absolute Power. Getting to some other honorable mentions that weren't off of any of these projects. Borgor, I Don't Care. Uber, Ominous and Yaks with Party Starter. Return with Strange Emptiness Around Me. Papakan with Wounds. DDD with Snapshot. And last but not least, Skybreak and Cure 97 Big Man with Aquashift. And last but not least, let me hit y'all with some non-dubstep EDM electronic recommends that I found to be pretty tasty last month. We got Shades, big up Shades, with The Corruption, Imanu and Hypression with Buried, Secrecy, Crown VIP, ISOXO with Click, Blossa with You and Me, Azuraga Vignator with Burn It Down, Chalbert with Aphelion, and last but not least, Skyth with Rhetoric. Alright y'all, that concludes this vid. Thank you all for watching. SoundCloud playlist in the description of my honorable mentions. Make sure to go support these prods if you end up fucking with the music. And yeah, this has been your boy Joe. Thank you all for watching. Follow my Discord. I fucking did it again. Join my Follow my Twitter. Join my Discord. Hit up the rest of my socials if you'd like. And I will see y'all in the next video. Thank you. Bye.